Welcome to the applicant briefing for the second round of the Future Innovation Fund pilot. This briefing will cover a bit of background on the pilot fund itself, who's eligible to apply, guidance on completing your application and the assessment process, underline our commitment to diversity and inclusion, and outline any key timings for the second round. The pilot was designed back in May 2020, shortly after the coronavirus pandemic hit, and has been designed as a pilot innovation grant fund. So we have only £3 million available to us. Unfortunately, at the time that the pandemic hit, the funding available to the Combined Authority and Growth Platform was very limited. And so we were looking to maximise the value of that £3 million for our businesses in the city region. So this is designed to complement national and local schemes. The pilot will be run in 3 competitive rounds of £1 million of funding. And we are taking an agile process so that we are committed to continuous improvement, meaning that we will look at evidence and feedback from each round, look to improve our processes for the next rounds of the pilot. Organisations can apply for grants between £25,000 and £75,000, and that grant funding is up to 100% for eligible costs, as outlined in the detailed guidance. The innovation projects in the bids must be aligned to the city region strategic priorities. There's further detail of those on the website, but they are building a sustainable industrial future, open health innovation, global cultural capital, zero carbon economy, tech for good, and digitalisation. These are the areas that we identified in our local industrial strategy, in which the city region has assets and strengths. The pilot has been designed to complement existing national and local programmes, and we designed this in collaboration with stakeholders. We can't underline enough how competitive round 1 of the competition was. We received over 230 applications and were nearly 16 times oversubscribed. And that unfortunately meant there were many businesses and organisations that we could not support through grant funding, who we would have liked to have support through grant funding. However, the pilot process allows us to pitch to government for a scaled up version of the fund, which will mean that we can secure additional innovation funding for organisations like yourself. So what do we mean by innovation? Because we're conscious that innovation can mean different things to different people. For this pilot fund, we've gone for a broad definition, which includes product, service, and process innovation projects, where a commercial market impact can be realised within 6 months from the date of the award of the grant funding. So we're looking for a quick impact here. This is differentiated from, for example, Innovate UK's competitions, which typically have a more R&D intensive element to them and typically take longer to come to market fruition. We are agnostic when it comes to industries and technologies. As long as your project is aligned to the strategic priorities, then we are open to many different ideas. And we are open to businesses, including socially trading organisations, but not charities, as long as your project has commercial viability. A key element of the pilot is to ensure that significant social value is being delivered through the project proposals, and there's a significant weighting allocated to social value in the assessment process. We'll come on to that in more detail.
While Liverpool City Region SMEs do need to be the lead applicant, collaborations are welcome, particularly if they add to the strength of the application or the capability of the applicants. We ask that there is 1 application per group of companies. There are some excluded activities, and applicants cannot have received more than £180,000 in public funding over the last 3 years. Please do check the applicant's guidance, as this is the #1 reason why applications have dropped out of the process. We're aiming to be as flexible as possible around eligible costs, but there are some restrictions and guidelines that need to be adhered to. Core project costs are likely to include materials, software, subcontractors and labour, and there are some ineligible costs including VAT and certain overheads. Again, full information in the applications guidance. Although match funding isn't necessary, this does increase the investment value for money and therefore will be prioritised to maximise the value of the fund. Please explain, if there is no match funding, why this might be the case. If you're still unsure whether you or your project is eligible, please do ask us. It will be better if you ask before you start, as if you're not eligible, then we can save you time and maybe point you to other support programs via the local growth hub. And do ask early, as we close to new inquiries 72 hours before deadline, which ensures that we get through any outstanding inquiries before launch.
We just wanted to take a moment to highlight some areas that you may wish to consider before you start your application. These are based on some of the things that we saw in the first round of the competition. We ask every applicant, regardless of whether they applied for the Future Innovation Fund in the first round or didn't, to read the application guidance in full, as we have changed a number of criteria and guidance points. We also advise all applicants to save their answers on a separate document before uploading to the online application form. This is to ensure that none of your work is lost should there be any problems with the online form saving. We would also like to stress that while some of the assessors assigned to assess your application may have knowledge of your sector or innovation technology, there may be some assessors that don't. Please ensure that all your answers are written in a way that an average industry professional could easily understand. The application form is based online and it will be through a Snap application system. You will have to answer a series of questions as well as uploading several appendices, including finance form and a Gantt chart. The application form link can be found on the Growth Platform Future Innovation Fund webpage. If you have any technical or accessibility issues with the form, please let us know through our email address, futureinnovationfund@growthplatform.org. There are 7 sections in total on the application form. We have improved our processes since round 1, and you will see a slightly different application form if you applied in the previous round. There are more questions, but they are shorter. This allows the assessors to more easily understand the information you are providing. 2 sections are probably perhaps worth mentioning at this point. One is additionality. This is really important to get across in terms of why your project needs support. Public money at the moment is very tight and we can't fund projects that could be easily funded through private resources. We also expect transformative impact. We cannot fund incremental improvement as it is not the scope of this pilot. The other important section to highlight is the social impact. The Combined Authority and Growth Platform are committed to delivering the maximum social value for the Liverpool City region. It's not just about commercial value. We need you to articulate how your proposal helps build a fairer, more inclusive economy. We understand that applications to this competition may take significant investment and time to put together. Whilst we cannot promise funding, we can assure you that your application will be assessed fairly. This will be done through a 3-step process. First will be an eligibility check. This is a gatekeeper process and carried out by the Growth Platform. This is simply to understand whether your application is eligible. If your application is deemed eligible, it will progress through to the independent external assessment stage. This will be carried out by an industry leading expert, and we have a pool of around 65 independent experts that are paid to go through your application in full. Each application is assessed by 3 separate assessors with a median scored carried forward to the portfolio selection process. If your application is one of the highest scoring applications, it will go through to the portfolio selection process, which is carried out by the Combined Authority Internal Investment Panel. The panel will look to fund a wide range of different projects based upon the KPIs of the project scope, and ensure that there's a fair spread across sectors, combined authority regions, and also technology stacks. The panel includes expertise from across financial, legal, investment, audit and policy, and also includes representatives from the Fairness and Social Justice Advisory Board.
We want to be clear that we're committed to a fair, transparent application process and to promoting equality, diversity and inclusion. In terms of a fair process, we want as broad a range of organisations to be able to apply to the Future Innovation Pilot as possible, so long as they meet the eligibility criteria and scope of the fund. We want to be as transparent as possible on how we'll make decisions and award funding, and so please check the application guidance to see a copy of the assessment matrix and understand how your bid will be marked. We are committed to promoting equality. We want to see applications and funded projects from a range of organisations that secure equality of outcomes. We recognise that there's improvements that can be made in this area, and so we're improving our assessment process, including our assessor pool and including a representative from our Fairness, Social Justice and Advisory Board on our internal panel. These commitments go further than just the Future Innovation Pilot, and this should inform the work of all that we do in the Combined Authority and Growth Platform. And so we'll take learnings from this pilot as well as our other programmes to understand how, as an organisation, we can further promote diversity, equality and inclusion.
Regarding timescales, applications will open for the second round on the 28th of September. The deadline for applications will be the 19th of October. All applications must be submitted by 23:59 on the 19th of October. Assessments of the applications will take place from the 20th of October to the 7th of December. And following the 7th of December, successful applicants will be notified. Please ensure you keep a note of these timescales. We cannot accept applications after the deadline. And we cannot accept applications by email or any other format outside the online application form.
So finally, we'd just like to underline that this is a pilot process. We won't get everything exactly right first time round, but we're committed to continuous improvement and learning through feedback and evidence. Therefore, we'd welcome your constructive feedback to improve the pilot. So please do engage with us. In terms of the bigger picture, we're pitching to central government for more innovation funding for our city region. The pilot helps us in that process, so please, again, work with us to further this cause. Finally, whilst the website has detailed FAQs, which should hopefully cover the majority of your questions, we will, even though we have a small team, endeavour to respond to any further inquiries through the Future Innovation Fund at growthplatform.org email address. Finally, we'd like to underline that this is a highly competitive round of funding based on the evidence we saw from the first round. We will do our best to secure more funding for the city region, but thank you for your time and good luck with your application.